So you've just picked up your Sony A7 III or Sony A7R III, or maybe you've jumped into the Sony Alpha family with a older Sony A7 model, but now you're looking for a lens, and unfortunately lenses for Sony systems are super expensive. But in this video, I'm gonna talk to you about the only lens you need to buy, especially if you're on a budget, and it's this guy right here, the Tamron 28-75. Hey guys, and welcome back to That Modern Dude, your home for tech and modern lifestyle videos. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing down below. And today we are talking about lenses. Now, I have previously talked about lenses for the Sony A7 III and other full-frame Sony cameras. In that video, I talked about the Zeiss Bartus 25mm and 85mm. I'll leave that video linked up above below if you want to check it out. The thing about those lenses is that they cost a pretty penny, about $1,600 each, give or take. Not everyone has that kind of money to throw around on lenses, especially when the body itself costs $3,000 here in Australia and about $2,000 overseas everywhere else. And with the Zeiss lenses, you kind of need to get both if you want to have a good range covered. So the better solution in terms of price, instead of getting two fast prime lenses, is to get a fast zoom lens. Now, previously the only fast zoom lenses, and by fast I mean aperture of 2.8 or lower, were the Sony G Master lenses, and those are ridiculously expensive, easily more than this camera itself. But earlier in the year, Tamron announced their lens, the 28-75 2.8, and this is pretty affordable. The lens itself comes in at $1,200 here in Australia. I think it's like $800 in America and overseas. Link down below anyway if you want to check it out. But super affordable, especially if you want a really fast lens. So let's go into the features and what you get for the price. So like I said, this is a 28-75mm zoom lens. Zoom meaning that it obviously zooms in, and f2.8 means that the aperture opens really wide, allowing you to get a nice bokeh in the background, which means blurry background. It also means better low light performance, so when you're shooting at night you can have that aperture a little bit wider, so you don't have to crank the ISO as high. That being said, the Sony Alpha cameras have pretty good ISO control anyway. Now, for the price, you get a lens which is built out of plastic, but I will say this, it doesn't necessarily feel cheap. It has a nice feel to it, and unless you own the G Masters, I really don't think you're gonna notice too much difference. I have the Zeiss Bartus lenses, and yeah, they're made out of metal and they feel really great, but I don't think that this is built poorly. You get a lens hood, which is fine, and it's not the best lens hood around. Certainly does the job. It is made out of plastic as well. I think the worst part about the design of this lens is the fact that the zoom ring and the focus ring are reversed. Takes a little bit of getting used to. And what you'll find is that the teeth on the zoom ring are larger than the one on the manual focus lens, and it can actually be quite easy to miss the manual focus ring, so it's something to look out for. But after a few weeks of using it, you sort of get used to it anyway, so it's not too big of a deal. Now, there is some light weather sealing on this lens. I have had it out in rain before, nothing super extreme, so look, take it with a grain of salt. It's not gonna have the best weather sealing just for the price. There is a rubber gasket there sealing it, so you know there is some level of protection there. In terms of the way it feels on the Sony A7 III, it is really well balanced. It is still slightly heavy towards the front of the camera, and that's just because the lens is still relatively large in comparison, but it doesn't feel crazy heavy in the hand. And if you had like a G Master, that thing like weighs almost twice as much as this lens here. I'll have the weights up on the screen so you can understand how top heavy that would actually be if you had the G Master. Now, one of my concerns before I picked up this lens was that it is 28mm at the widest end, whereas the G Master comes in at 24mm, and the Bartus that I have is a 25mm lens. So I was curious as to see if 28mm is wide enough, and I'm sure a lot of you out there as well. So here's a few clips. So this clip is me. This is palming the camera, holding up at arm's length in my hand. This is how wide it is at 28mm. And then now I'll put it on a grill pod and see how that is. So for vlogging and whatnot. And you know, it's definitely, I think definitely wide enough. It's pushing the boundaries, but if you're on a gorilla pod, you're not gonna have a problem whatsoever. Autofocus on this lens is really, really snappy. I've not had a single problem with it. So I'll just do a quick couple of tests here, nothing too scientific. So as you can see, as I walk towards the camera, the autofocus does a pretty good job of tracking me. And if I dip in and out of the frame here, like I said, the autofocus is really good and you're not gonna have an issue. There was some issues in the early stages of the release, but Tamron has since updated the firmware so that you don't have those problems, and I didn't have those problems before updating the firmware, and I haven't had any problems since. So it's been really, really good. Now, the great thing about this is that you get access to not only a wide angle lens, but also a nice telephoto at 25mm. But because you can shoot in super 35mm mode on the full frame Sony Alpha cameras, you're effectively getting, I think it's like 120mm or so. Again, I'll put it up on the screen for you, which means if you need to get even closer to your subject, you can do that, of course. Little bit of resolution loss in photos and videos, but nothing drastic and definitely usable. Bokeh is completely subjective, so I'll chuck a few little snippets here up on the screen. You can decide for yourself whether or not it's good or not. I myself have no issues with it. I think it looks quite nice, and especially for the price. So if you have just picked up your Sony A7 III or other Sony full frame camera and you are looking to get a lens, I would look no further than the 28-75, especially if you've only got enough money to buy one. It is a super affordable lens. It has a great focal length, which is gonna be great for everything, especially if you're shooting weddings or any sort of event photography. You're gonna find this lens very, very handy and not gonna feel the need to upgrade anytime soon, especially so you can, go out, use it and save more money if you wanna go out and buy an addition to this lens. But again, if you only have enough money for one, or you're going traveling and you only want one lens, this is the lens to get. It fits great on the mirrorless system, operates really, really well, and the quality is top notch. So links down below if you want to check out this lens for yourself. Really affordable option for the Sony Alpha series. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that thumbs up down below and leave a comment as well on what lenses you like for the Sony A7 III, and maybe you picked up the Tamron 28-75. Leave your thoughts down below too. I'd love to hear them. Follow me over on social as always, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.